I never thought my own brother would be the reason I lost my home, my family business, and almost my name. But that's exactly what happened. And if the judge hadn't interrupted him at the exact moment she did, he probably would have gotten away with all of it. My name is Noah Carter, and this whole nightmare started the week my father died. My dad, Robert Carter, owned a small auto repair shop just outside Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy, no giant chain, just a brick garage with 3 service bays, a faded blue sign, and a reputation built over 30 years. People trusted my father because he was honest. If your brakes were fine, he said your brakes were fine. If you only needed a $10 fix, he didn't turn it into a $1,000 problem. I grew up in that garage. I was 12 when Dad first let me hold the flashlight under a pickup truck. By 16, I could change a transmission. By 23, I was working beside him full-time, 6 days a week. I wasn't just his son. I was the guy he planned to leave the business to. At least, that's what he always told me. My older brother, Ethan, was different. He hated Greece, hated small-town life, hated working for Dad. The minute he turned 18, he left for Chicago and barely looked back. He'd come home for Thanksgiving sometimes, Christmas if we were lucky. But every time he came back, he acted like he'd escaped something beneath him. Dad used to shrug it off. He's chasing money, he'd say. You're building something real. For years, I believed that was enough. Then Dad had a stroke. It happened on a Tuesday morning while he was opening the shop. I found him on the office floor, half conscious, trying to say my name. I called 911, rode with him to the hospital, and stayed there so long I forgot what day it was. The doctors said the stroke was severe. He survived, but he wasn't the same. Some days he could talk clearly. Some days he got confused halfway through a sentence. He'd recognize me, then forget where he was. The man who used to diagnose engines by sound alone suddenly needed help remembering what year it was. That was when Ethan came back. Not because he wanted to help, because he smelled weakness. He showed up in an expensive coat, carrying coffee no one asked for, talking in that calm, polished voice people use when they want to sound concerned without actually feeling anything. "Hey, little brother," he said, like we were close. "How bad is it?" I should have known right then. Over the next few weeks, Ethan inserted himself into everything. He talked to the doctors. He asked questions about Dad's medication. He offered to handle the paperwork because I was supposedly too emotional. My mom, Diane, was falling apart, and I was spending every morning at the shop, every afternoon at the hospital, and every night trying to keep our lives from collapsing. So when Ethan said, "Don't worry, I'll deal with the legal stuff," I let him. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Dad passed away 6 weeks later. The funeral was packed. Customers brought food. Old friends cried. Mechanics from other shops came by in work boots and black jackets. My father mattered to people. And for about 48 hours, I thought grief was the worst thing I'd have to survive. Then Ethan invited Mom and me to the shop office and dropped a folder on Dad's desk. Inside was a new will. According to that will, my father had left Ethan the house, the shop, every business account, and full control over the estate. I got Dad's old toolbox. That's it. I remember laughing when I first read it, because it was so ridiculous, I honestly thought it had to be fake. I looked at Ethan and said, "Very funny." He didn't smile. Robert wouldn't do this. Ethan leaned back in Dad's chair like he belonged there. Actually, he did. He updated everything after the stroke. Said Noah was too emotionally attached to run the business objectively. I stared at him. "You're lying." He slid another paper toward me. Power of attorney. His name. Then another paper. Transfer of business authority. His name. Then another. A letter supposedly signed by Dad, saying Ethan had the financial discipline and leadership to protect the family's assets. I felt like the room tilted sideways. "No," I said. "No way Dad signed this." Ethan folded his hands. "Believe whatever you want. It's legal." Mom started crying. I grabbed the papers again, reading them like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something sane. They didn't. Within 2 weeks, Ethan fired me from the shop. Let me say that again. My brother fired me from the business I helped build with my father since I was a kid. He changed the locks. He told the employees he was restructuring. He sold 2 old project cars Dad had been restoring. He cut off my access to the business accounts. Then he told Mom it was best for everyone if I moved out of the house until the estate settled. And the sickest part? He did it all while acting calm. Like I was the unstable one. Like I was some bitter screw-up who couldn't accept that Dad trusted the more successful son. People started looking at me differently. Not everyone, but enough. Ethan told relatives I was angry because I expected special treatment. He told the employees I had been stealing cash from the shop, which was a total lie. He even hinted to Mom that Dad changed the will because he didn't trust my judgment. That one almost broke me, because even though she never fully believed him, grief makes people fragile. And Ethan knew exactly how to use that. I ended up sleeping in a motel for almost 3 weeks, taking delivery jobs at night just to eat. Every minute I wasn't working, I was going through every memory I had with my father, trying to figure out when this could have happened. And the more I thought about it, the less it made sense. Dad always said the shop would be mine, because I was the one who stayed. Not because I was owed something, but because I earned it. I knew the vendors. I knew the customers. I knew which lift jammed in winter and which drawer held the old invoices. Ethan didn't know any of that. He didn't even know the code to the side door until Dad got sick. So I started digging. First, I called Dad's longtime attorney, Mr. Keene. He sounded confused the moment I mentioned the new will. What new will? He asked. My whole body went cold. According to Mr. Keene, my father had never come in to sign any updated estate documents after the stroke. In fact, the last will he had on file was from 7 years earlier. And in that version, Dad left the shop to me and split the rest equally between both sons and Mom. I nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Keene emailed me a copy that same day, and when I saw Dad's real signature on that document, I knew. I knew Ethan had forged everything. But knowing it and proving it were 2 different things. Because Ethan's paperwork looked polished. It had a notary stamp, witness signatures, dates, formal language. It looked official enough to scare me. Still, I filed a legal challenge, and that's when Ethan got vicious. He hired an expensive attorney from downtown Columbus. Suddenly, I wasn't just a grieving son contesting a suspicious will. In court filings, I became financially resentful, emotionally volatile, and motivated by personal entitlement. They dug up every bad moment I'd ever had. A bar fight when I was 21. A missed tax payment during COVID. An old speeding ticket. None of it had anything to do with whether Ethan forged a will. But it painted a picture. And juries, judges, everybody, they're still human. Pictures matter. For months, it felt like I was drowning, while Ethan smiled from the shore. Then one night, a call came from someone I didn't expect. It was Carla Ruiz, Dad's former office manager. She had retired the year before his stroke. Sweet woman, sharp memory. She said, "Noah, there's something that's been bothering me." My heart started pounding. She told me that about 10 days after Dad's stroke, Ethan came by the house looking for old business files. Carla had been there dropping off food for Mom. Ethan went into Dad's office alone for almost 20 minutes. When he came out, he had Dad's signature stamp, a file box, and a stack of blank letterhead. I sat up straight. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Her voice cracked. "But after everything that's happened, I think I do now." That testimony changed everything. My lawyer subpoenaed hospital records, notary logs, phone records, and security footage from the hospital parking garage. And piece by piece, Ethan's story started to crack. The new will had been signed on March 14th at 3:40 p.m. According to Ethan, Dad signed it at home in the kitchen, fully aware, with Ethan and a notary present. But the hospital records showed Dad was in the neurological ICU that entire afternoon. Sedated, monitored, not home, not in a kitchen, and definitely not discussing estate law. Still, Ethan's attorney kept pushing. They claimed the date could have been entered wrong. Then they claimed Dad briefly improved and signed another day. Then they argued the witnesses simply misremembered the location. Every time one excuse died, another one took its place. By the time the final hearing arrived, I was exhausted. The courtroom felt colder than it should have. Ethan sat across from me in a navy suit, looking polished and confident, like he was heading into a board meeting instead of a fraud hearing. Mom sat behind me, clutching a tissue so hard I thought it might rip. My lawyer presented the original will from Mr. Keene's office, Carla's testimony, the hospital timeline, and the handwriting expert's concerns. Ethan's lawyer attacked everything, said the original will was outdated, said grief had clouded my memory, said family businesses often create jealousy. Then Ethan took the stand, and that was when I knew he thought he'd already won. He looked straight at the judge and lied with the kind of confidence only a lifelong manipulator can fake. "Yes, Your Honor," he said smoothly. "My father knew exactly what he was doing. He told me Noah loved the shop, but love isn't enough to run a business. He said I had the financial discipline to protect the family." The will was signed in my parents' kitchen. My mother was there. The notary was there. My father was alert and clear. I felt my hands clench. Mom whispered behind me, "That's not true." Ethan kept going. He wanted peace. He wanted structure. He wanted me to make the hard decisions Noah never could. My lawyer stood to object, but before he could speak, the judge interrupted. Not gently, sharply. "Mr. Carter," Judge Holloway said, leaning forward, "stop right there." The room froze. Even Ethan looked thrown off. The judge lifted a document from the bench. "You testified under oath that your father signed this will in his kitchen, at home, on March 14th, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." She held up another page. "Then can you explain why St. Vincent Medical Center records place your father in ICU room 482 at that exact time, sedated, intubated, and under continuous observation?" The silence after that felt like a car crash. Ethan blinked, just once. His attorney stood up fast. "Your Honor, we believe there may be confusion regarding—" But the judge cut him off too. "I am not finished." Her voice could have cracked concrete. She turned back to Ethan. "And while we're here, perhaps you'd also like to explain why the notary whose seal appears on this document submitted an affidavit this morning stating she was never present for any signing involving Robert Carter." My breath caught. I turned to my lawyer. He gave the smallest nod. I hadn't known about that affidavit. Apparently, the notary had finally broken after being confronted with security footage placing her 40 miles away on the date of the supposed signing. She admitted Ethan paid her to notarize a signature page she never witnessed. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Ethan's face lost color. Judge Holloway wasn't done. She lifted one more exhibit. "Our forensic examiner also notes that the signature on this so-called will appears to have been lifted from a prior equipment financing form and digitally transferred. In plain English, Mr. Carter, this document appears to be fabricated." Fabricated. That word hit the room like thunder. Ethan tried to speak. "Your Honor, You've spoken quite enough. For the first time since Dad died, I saw my brother afraid. Real fear. Not the annoyed irritation of a man being challenged. Not the smug confidence of a liar performing for the room. Fear." Judge Holloway looked toward the clerk. "Strike the fraudulent will from consideration. Reinstate the prior valid testamentary instrument, pending final written order. Refer this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury, fraud, and unlawful transfer of estate assets." Mom gasped. I didn't. I couldn't. I was too stunned to move. Ethan's attorney was talking fast now, asking for a recess, asking for time, asking for literally anything that could stop the collapse. But it was over. You could feel it. The whole illusion he had built, every lie, every forged paper, every fake expression of concern, was caving in on top of him. And then the judge said something I'll never forget. She looked directly at Ethan and said, "This court sees many inheritance disputes. But what you attempted here was not grief, and it was not misunderstanding. It was theft, dressed up as family." The bailiff stepped closer. Ethan turned to look at me. Maybe he expected me to feel sorry for him. Maybe he expected anger. But what I felt was emptiness. Because the truth is, by then, he had already stolen the one thing I couldn't get back. The last peaceful weeks of my father's life. He had turned those weeks into paperwork, suspicion, and poison. Even after the ruling, the damage didn't vanish overnight. It took months to unwind the accounts, reverse the illegal sales, and restore the shop legally. Some money was gone for good. Some customer relationships had to be rebuilt. Some employees had left. Mom and I had a lot to repair too. Not because she chose Ethan over me, but because grief and manipulation leave bruises you can't always see. But we did rebuild. One step at a time. I got the shop back. Dad's original will was upheld. The house stayed with Mom. And Ethan? He took a plea deal almost a year later. Fraud, perjury, restitution. Public record. The golden boy who thought he could rewrite our father's final wishes with a printer and a lie ended up exactly where he belonged, exposed. People ask me sometimes if I ever miss my brother, and I tell them the truth. I miss the version of him I thought existed when we were kids. The one who taught me how to throw a baseball. The one who used to sneak me candy when Mom said no. But the man who sat in that courtroom and lied about our father while stealing everything from his own family, that man was a stranger. These days when I unlock the shop in the morning, I still hear Dad in my head. "Do honest work," he used to say. "And when people trust you, protect that trust like it's gold." I didn't understand how expensive betrayal could be until it came from my own blood. But I understand something else now too. A lie can wear a suit. It can carry legal papers. It can smile at your mother and shake hands with your lawyer. But the truth only needs one opening. And in my case, it came when the judge interrupted.